If you're an educator or a learning designer, you've probably asked yourself this question 1,000 times. How do we really help people become autonomous learners? Well, today, we're going to dig into a fantastic framework from Dr. Simon Paul Atkinson's Substack that gives us a super clear roadmap. You hear this phrase everywhere, right? Lifelong learner. It's become the gold standard in pretty much every field, from corporate training to higher education. The idea is to create people who are just naturally driven to keep learning, keep skilling up on their own. But here's the million-dollar question. It's one thing to say that's our goal, but how do we actually design learning environments that make it happen? Hoping for the best isn't really a strategy. So where do we even begin? The answer really starts with understanding this fundamental connection. Atkinson's framework lays it out perfectly. Think of lifelong learning and learner autonomy as two sides of the very same coin. Lifelong learning, that's the journey, the span of it all. But learner autonomy, that's the capacity to actually drive the car. And I love this metaphor. Autonomy isn't just some bonus feature you can add on. It is the engine. Without that internal drive, that skill set to direct your own learning, the whole process just grinds to a halt the minute a class is over. So our job isn't just to show them the road, it's to help them build the engine. So what is this engine made of? Well, it's a bunch of very real, very practical skills. It's about turning these abstract ideas into concrete actions. Self-reflection isn't just navel-gazing. It's about being able to look at yourself and say, okay, where are my skill gaps? And resource management is about knowing how to go find the right online course or workshop to fill those gaps. This is the toolkit every autonomous learner needs. Okay, so how do we design for all this? This is why Atkinson's framework gets really useful. It's built on 3 core principles. First, allow learner-defined routes. Second, acknowledge their context. And third, encourage personalization. Let's break down that first one. So, principle 1 is all about a major shift in who's in the driver's seat. It's about moving away from those rigid, pre-planned pathways we create and moving towards a model where the learner is the one navigating their own educational journey. Now pay close attention to that phrase, fully informed. This isn't about just throwing learners in the deep end and saying, good luck. It's about giving them the map, the compass, the objectives, all the resources, and then empowering them to choose the route that makes the most sense for them based on where they are right now. And you should know, this whole approach is built on a really solid foundation of educational theory. It's all about fostering learner agency by giving them a supportive structure to make good decisions. This lines up perfectly with self-determination theory, which tells us that feeling competent and in control is a massive intrinsic motivator. Okay, let's move on to the second principle, acknowledge context. This is so important. It's a reminder that learning never, ever happens in a vacuum. Every single learner walks in the door with a rich social and cultural background, and our designs have to respect that. What this really means is that we have to see our learners as whole people, not just brains we're trying to fill with information. When we acknowledge their background, their community, their values, that's how we support their journey. It builds that sense of relatedness, which is absolutely key for motivation. The theories behind this are fascinating. Self-determination theory points out that while the need for autonomy is universal, the way we express it is shaped by our culture. You also have perspectives like Kapapa Māori pedagogy from New Zealand, which really emphasizes that individual success is deeply tied to the community. And this idea of subjectification, it's all about helping learners see themselves as people who can actively shape their own futures. And that leads us perfectly to the third and final principle, encouraging personalization. How do we make learning really stick? We make it relevant. This is where we close the gap between abstract ideas and a learner's actual, real life. Now, this is a really powerful shift. Instead of asking learners to check their lives at the door, we're inviting them to bring their work challenges, their community projects, whatever it is, into the classroom. When you do that, the material suddenly becomes immediately useful and way more meaningful. And again, this isn't just a new fad, it's backed by decades of research. Malcolm Knowles' work on andragogy, the theory of how adults learn, showed that adults are most motivated when learning solves a problem they have right now. This goes hand in hand with the push for authentic assessments that actually look like the work people do in their profession. So let's just pull it all together for a second. We started with the why, this big goal of creating lifelong learners. Then we figured out the what, understanding that autonomy is the engine that drives it. And finally, we landed on the how,
a practical 3-part framework to actually build that engine: learner-defined routes, acknowledging context, and encouraging personalization.
So I'll leave you with a question to take back to your own work. As you sit down to plan your next course or module or workshop, just ask yourself this: what is one choice I can make, just one, that doesn't just deliver content, but actively empowers my learner's autonomy? Because that one little choice could be the start of something big. Thanks for joining me for this explain.